The chosen one becomes the target. Joining us on Columbus on the Record this week, Herb Asher, OSU political scientist, Julie Carr-Smythe, State House correspondent for the Associated Press, and Terry Casey, Republican strategist. In a sharp reversal, all but one of the Republican candidates running for U.S. Senate say Donald Trump has made a terrible mistake. They and their supporters call Trump's endorsed candidate, J.D. Vance, a fraud, and they are going all out to discredit the Hillbilly Elegy author. Josh Mandel and the Club for Growth, which supports Mandel, they say Vance is a Republican in name only, and their ads replay Vance's harsh words about Trump over and over again. Why the barrage of ads against J.D. Vance? Well, a new poll out from Fox News appears to show a Trump bump for Vance. He is at 23%, double where he was last month. Josh Mandel is at 18%, still within the margin of error. Next is Mike Gibbons at 13%, Matt Dolan's at 11%, and Jane Timken is at 6%. A quarter of Republican voters remain undecided, and half say they could change their mind. Terry Casey, just a couple days to go. Is this race still extremely fluid?
It is very fluid, and one of the big questions is what kind of turnout are we going to have on Election Day, because Republicans tend to be more Election Day voters, and a lot of them are, to be honest, one, turned off by all of the negative sewer system on the TV stations and in what people are getting in direct mail and phone calls. But the other thing is there's actually some confusion I've got from Board of Elections people of, is the primary in May or August, and can you vote in one or both? But the big thing is there's, with all of the attack ads back and forth and around, it causes people to scratch their head and wonder what's up.
Herb, Josh Mandel seems to have plateaued. He hasn't lost too much support, but he's been stuck at that sort of 20% range. His name ID, will that put him over the top on Tuesday, do you think?
It's conceivable. I mean, if people go in not really knowing very much and looking for a familiar name, that might happen. Look, I think Terry's correct. It is fluid, and there's still more to be learned about J.D. Vance. Democrats have to decide, who do they really want as the Republican nominee? Is Vance a stronger candidate? The reason Trump gave for endorsing him is he thinks he's the strongest candidate. There's an awful lot of speculation, which I know some journalists are following up on. What's the real reason why Trump endorsed J.D. Vance? And that gets to the question of Peter Thiel and quid pro quos and money being exchanged. I mean, and I'm sure people are going to be digging over the next week.
Yeah.
And if anything like that comes out.
Julie, is it a two-person race, Josh Mandel and J.D. Vance, or does Mike Gibbons, who has been up near the top consistently, Jane Timken, Matt Dolan seems to be ticking up a little?
Yeah, I don't think it's a two-person race at all. One theory that came my way last week in reporting was that this is now going to split the Trump base between Vance, Mandel, and Gibbons, and then that could give some sort of a path for, and we're seeing in that poll you showed, for somebody like Matt Dolan.
Yeah, that poll, Terry, shows Matt Dolan up quite a bit from March. He's still down by 10, 11, 12 points. But there's a new poll out from a firm we're not familiar with that shows him actually leading. We don't know where it came from. We don't know how it was done.
Well, I talked to the people in Mississippi who did that poll, and half of it was a robocall where they didn't rotate the names, which was an advantage for Dolan, who was mentioned first, or Vance, who was mentioned last, and then they did some texting people. The poll's a little iffy-ish, and of course, to be honest, any polling in a primary, particularly now, is very dangerous. It's like trying to climb a high mountain. It's awfully difficult reaching people and getting honest answers.
And we should mention that, Jane Timken is still counting on a ground game she built over this time, and these polls have been very difficult to count on because of the turnout issues and just who has done them and with what kind of interests.
With early voting, will the early voting numbers which come out first on Tuesday evening, soon after the polls close, will they give us an indication, at least of someone's organization and their ground game?
I think more likely they'll give you an indication of name recognition. So I wouldn't be surprised if Mandel's ahead in early voting. But I don't know how many people have really voted early this time, so that's an issue.
The feedback I've gotten from talking to election officials around the state is, again, the Democrats traditionally do a little better in early voting because they push it a lot more. Republicans like to vote on Election Day, but either way, the voter turnout, I voted this past week, and there's no lines. It's real easy. The numbers are not huge, so turnout is still a wild card. And part of it also gets into the rural parts of Ohio versus the cities, and I think there's some differences of levels of interest that way geographically.
And it's not all confusion. It could also be people have been repelled by this race. It's been one of the nastiest I've seen. And pretty soon you look down the line and say, well, there's all this negative that Trump is now saying about Mandel and Gibbons and his allies. And so then what about Vance and all the negative that's being spewed about him in these ads I'm seeing? Maybe I'll just stay home.
And my summary was this is like a cage match, only it's a multi-level cage match because, again, all the money, independent, separate sources, special interests.
Do they all come together afterwards, Herb, and get on stage together and hold hands and say, I endorse the winner?
Not sincerely.
Do they even do that, though?
Yeah, I don't think so. I don't think so. If Matt Dolan were willing to put in another couple of million in the next week, I can see the ad right now. Vote for the one true conservative who has not gotten in the gutter.
That's kind of what he's saying.
But I mean he really has to repeat that. He has to now separate himself from the other top four.
But part of his problem is he hasn't been attacked by the others, so that doesn't build up the name ID and interest in his campaign with some people.
But if saying that he's different than the sewer that you referred to earlier, that might appeal to just enough people to say, yeah, he's a conservative and he's not stooping to these tactics.
Well, we'll see it'll be fun to watch. I mean,
Yeah.
It's not been fun to watch, but the result will be fun to
Well,
watch.
we always
think.
joke the people who are really happy, of course, are the local TV stations.
Not the public TV stations.
Yes, thank you.
All right, primary voters will decide their party's races for governor on Tuesday. Democrats will choose between former Cincinnati Mayor John Cranley and former Dayton Mayor Nan Whaley. Many establishment Democrats have lined up for Whaley, who says she presents the best challenge to Mike DeWine. Cranley continues to tout his economic record in Cincinnati. Herb Asher, what are you looking for in this race? There's really been not much polling in this. We don't know where they stand. We think Whaley has the edge, but where do you think this comes down?
I agree. I don't really know who's going to win this. And what I really don't know is what's happening in those Democratic vote-rich areas in northeastern Ohio. I mean, this is really sort of two candidates from Cincinnati and Dayton, southwestern Ohio, and I'm not sure how much this race has really caught on. I do know that Cranley's gotten the endorsement of the Toledo Blade and the Cleveland Plain Dealer, and I think he's been probably better positioned to get his message on TV in the last couple of weeks. I don't think Nan has very much by way of resources or whatever, but for Democrats, it's who do you think is the strongest candidate to run against DeWine? And I think there are more people thinking, well, maybe Cranley really does have.
The winner actually right now is undecided, and I've been told it's come down from about 70% undecided to only 50% undecided. So it's really a wild card. But in some ways, if I were betting today, I'd probably go on Nan Whaley, even though Cranley's been the better, more articulate candidate. But Nan's had the TV ads from Sherrod Brown, which might be enough to push her over, particularly as Herb tied in northeastern Ohio, where probably 40 to 45% of the Democrat vote exists.
I think Whaley makes an interesting point, a good point, saying, look, we've nominated middle-aged white men every time, and it hasn't worked out very well. Let's give a woman a chance. I think that helps her.
Right. I mean, I did a women's vote story with my colleague John Sewer last week, and it's a huge deal for Democrats. They need to shore that up. It's one of the only distinctions when you look at the surface of they're both mayors, they're both from the same part of the state, they've both, they're coming in without a statewide experience politically. They're mostly aligned on the issues, and the one issue where Whaley has tried to distinguish herself is, and this is a very narrow thing, but to say, yes, we're both pro-abortion rights, but I was sooner and more consistently. So, that's, if people are voting on one issue, maybe it's going to be gender.
Herb, John Cranley early on put a lot of emphasis on his work with the Innocence Project and also his support for legalizing marijuana and using those revenues to help the state. Now, lately, it's been on his economic record in Cincinnati. Should he have used that economic record sooner in this campaign?
No, I think he needs to keep on. He's got a few more days. He's got the money to have TV ads, and of course, remember when he first started talking about the economic record and doing the comparative ad with Nan's record in Dayton, a lot of Democrats, liberal supporters of Nan Whaley said, "Well, that's not fair. You went negative." But
Have they seen the GOP Senate race?
Yeah. Well. In fact, though, what Cranley's doing right now, should Nan Whaley win, is he's telling her, "Look, you've got to address this issue." And it's perfectly legitimate to compare your record as mayor of Cincinnati with her record as mayor of Dayton. So I think you should keep on emphasizing that and do whatever else you need to do. But again, I'm just puzzled. What happens to the black vote in northeastern Ohio? What happens in the Toledo area? I know we have,
Right.
Teresa Fetters on Cranley's ticket.
Well, and Whaley's running mate is from Northeast Ohio.
But nobody knows.
No.
Nobody knows who she is.
Well, Joyce Beatty has endorsed Nan Whaley here in Central Ohio to help that. Would that help with the African American vote in Columbus?
Well, it would help if Joyce was on TV saying, "Here's why I'm for that candidate." But the problem is neither Nan or Cranley has had the money. They've been a little bit on TV, but they haven't. Compared to the ads, I mean, in a half-hour period, you might have 18 commercials for the U.S. Senate race, but very little, maybe one or a half of one for the Democrats running for governor. They just haven't had the presence and the money.
Right, and I mean, but then Cranley has this Gloria Steinem endorsement to go up against Sherrod Brown's endorsement of Whaley, and it is really anybody's guess.
Yeah, that will be 50% undecided. That's really a coin flip at this point.
On the Republican side, the big question is, will Mike DeWine get above 50% of the
All right,
vote?
let's get to that.
Oh, sorry.
It should be. It would be a shocking development for Mike DeWine to lose Tuesday's primary. He faces a lot of Republican criticism, but three challengers, Joe Blystone, Ron Hood, and Jim Renacci, likely will split the anti-DeWine vote. Julie Carr Smythe is at that 50% mark. Is that what we're going to watch for? You can't see him losing to any one of these three candidates.
I can't see him losing because there are three candidates that will split the vote, which is very strongly seen in the Republican Party right now. We talked about it when we were talking about J.D. Vance. I mean, a lot of people are upset on the right of the party about Mike DeWine's aggressive stance toward COVID in the beginning and other things that he's done. But with that name ID that he has, with his long record in public service and his incumbency, I just think the other three are going to split. But he may not get to 50%.
Her governor has stayed above the fray. Renacci has been throwing ads at him, in Blystone criticizing him on social media and things like that. And he's sort of ignored them. Will that get him over the 50%, do you think?
He'll be close to it. But the point is that that's a sign of vulnerability. If the Democrats nominate a candidate who know how to take advantage of that. Because I think there are a lot of people, traditional Republicans, the small business sector is not very happy with Mike DeWine. There are some of those remaining rhino liberal Republicans who are not happy about signing a ridiculous gun law or whatever. And his campaign thus far has been not to antagonize the right wing of his party anymore. Well, does that give any Democratic candidate the opportunity to say, wait a second, he's not even representing all the Republicans? And so I think a Democrat, in order to win, has to hope that the Republicans somehow screw up or whatever.
Will the Renacci and Blystone folks stay home? Ron Hood's folks as well. Will they stay home if in November if DeWine is the nominee? Likely.
Well, if there was nothing else on the ballot, there's a chance they might stay home. But the motivation in the fall is going to be all the anger at the economy and inflation and Biden and the Democrats and a lot of the other issues that the National Democrats have pushed. So I think that'll be the galvanizer and the turnout factor in the fall. But also, whether DeWine gets 48% or 52 or 55, it's going to look giant and huge compared to the Senate winner, maybe getting 28% or 31% or 27%. So his margin will look big and impressive compared to the Senate winner.
But DeWine is not well liked in a lot of rural parts of Ohio because of COVID, because of other things. And those folks, they may come out, but they're not going to vote for him. You don't think the strong anti-DeWine folks likely aren't going to vote for him in November, right?
Well,
It
as
depends, I guess.
if he's running against Nan Whaley, maybe. You know, I think it's also possible we see a third, like an independent type candidate, hop in here and try to make this race interesting. But yeah, I don't know that they come out for that race.
The other issue, you mentioned the economic issues that will fire up Republicans if there is a Supreme Court ruling that either overturns Roe versus Wade or cuts into it dramatically, Herb. Will that mobilize Democrats to vote on this issue where for the past 40 years it's been Republicans who have been really motivated to vote on that issue?
Yeah, perhaps. But again, it really depends on who the Democratic nominee is. And I could imagine, for example, Cranley more than Whaley going out of his way not to antagonize potential Republican defectors. So if that's the case, he's probably not going to make abortion the number one issue. He'll talk about the economy, he'll talk about mismanagement, he'll talk about corruption, and that's one of the imponderables, Mike, is that we know there are still investigations going on. And what we don't know is will there be any more revelations before the election. But I think, Mike DeWine does start, and it surprised me a little. I didn't realize that there really was an antipathy, that he really was disliked in many different segments of his party. So the question becomes in November, can he get 90% of the Republican vote, 95, 80%? And the lower it goes, the better the arithmetic looks for the Democrats.
And there are a lot of independents who like the way he handled COVID, and even moderate Democrats.
At the beginning.
Yeah.
The beginning, yeah.
But it's a lot of time till the fall, and also the more time that passes, the more the COVID thing becomes more of a distant history. Yeah. And there's bound to be other new issues that pop up.
Yeah, Ron Hood, why is he running? Is he running?
He's running. He's on Facebook.
On the ballot. Yeah.
And he's got a running mate who's fairly well known by some of the strong right-wingers in southwestern Ohio. So
I checked his Facebook page, and it's still Ron Hood for Congress.
There's another one that's there. I found
Okay.
it. You got to work at it.
You got to work at it,
right?
Okay, that's not a good sign.
Right, but if Ron gets 7, 8, 9%,
yeah.
And then remember, Renacci and Blystone hate each other. There were some Facebook posts where they were both going at each other and talking about each other's financial problems. Renacci's running mate bankruptcy, financial problems that Blystone had with bankruptcy. So they don't like each other very well either.
Trump we talked about it in the Senate race. He seems to favor Renacci, even though he's not really endorsed him. He's endorsed J.D. Vance. This will be a test of his influence on Ohio, on this election and elections around the country.
Right, and I mean, what Renacci can say is he was once endorsed by Trump, but that was in a different race in a different
Jan Timken
time.
says
right.
it too. Yeah.
And so can Timken. But I do think that it's going to be a really interesting year to see what happens with Trump's backing, because it's not even anger, it's bafflement, and it is real, and it's across the state. I'm talking to all kinds of factions within the party that are just like, what?
Yeah.
A guy who hated you and stood for everything you wanted about a few short years ago, but Vance says he's changed.
Yeah, well, Trump says everyone's changed, right, Terry? Everyone criticized him at the start.
Trump made the point that if he didn't endorse people that didn't like him at some point or another, said something negative, he couldn't endorse anybody. So it's one of those things.
Yeah, but Vance was as negative as you could be.
Yeah,
Except maybe for Ted
Hillary.
Cruz. When and
John Kasich.
Yeah.
Well, Kasich stuck to his guns there, at least. Anyway.
Yeah.
All right, our last topic. Tuesday's election will be the first of a two-game series. The second primary, we think, will happen in May. It will pick the party's candidates for state House and state Senate districts. The borders of those districts remain uncertain. The Ohio Redistricting Commission seems not too excited to do any more work after a federal court told everyone it was ready to accept a previously rejected map. Julie Carr Smythe, they haven't met for 2.5 weeks after the latest Supreme Court ruling. Now they've set a meeting for May 6th, 2 days after the primary.
Right.
They got to come up with a new map and fix everything in that meeting?
I don't know. I think you meant to say that the second primary would be in August.
August, I'm sorry.
And so I think that everything is a bit up in the air. They have no incentive now to create a fifth legislative map and send it back to the court that's rejected the other ones, because there's a federal court that's come in and said, we'll just use one of your previously invalidated maps in an August primary if you can't work it out.
Yeah.
So, you know, the dragging of feet seems to suggest maybe they don't care too much to do that.
Yeah.
And the court was very clear in their decision in saying the reason they went with map number 3 is most of the boards of elections have already plugged those lines into the maps, and they're already better prepared. If they created suddenly a new map by mid to late May, then it puts the time frame a lot tighter in terms of doing all the pre-election mechanics. And again, part of the thing about Ohio is we allow so many different types of early voting, mail-in voting, overseas military, that you need that 90 days prior to an August election. So the time frame is tight, but I think they'll go ahead and again need to stress to people, you got to vote both in May and August. It isn't one of these either or things. Or remember in 2020, there was kind of an early May election, then they had a late May election. It's different races, different things.
But it's clear that the Republican members of the Redistricting Commission have basically ignored the intent of the voters in passing the 2 constitutional amendments. So, and it was interesting that the federal court, which gave the Republican members of the commission what they wanted, still actually the Republican members said, well, this is awful, but what else can we do? And so let me make a prediction here. I do think, and I think New York State, we were talking about that, it is still possible that the Ohio Supreme Court may say, despite the fact that we're having congressional primary coming up, sorry, the congressional districts are still unconstitutional, and since we're going to have another primary in August, we can redo the congressional primary the same day.
Well, how much of a heavy hand will the Ohio Supreme Court be in this, Julie? They've ruled now 4 maps unconstitutional on the state level, 1 on the congressional one.
Right. With a second one before them.
But they don't seem to have the stick to make the commission do what they want.
Well, I mean, the one thing they can do, I think, is they can come up with a map, risk being challenged by the federal court. The federal court has already kind of shot them in the foot, so it doesn't matter if they do something that the federal court shoots down, because it's already sort of ignored their power, but warns that we shouldn't do that.
How about holding them in contempt, Terry? I mean, they threatened to do that once. They called off the dogs when the commission came up with was it the second or was it the third map? I can't remember.
Well, they've threatened contempt of court, but that's a tangled issue when you got different branches of government.
Yeah, but court order's a court order.
I
we can't ignore court orders, can we?
Well, it depends. And remember, the Ohio Supreme Court is very well aware they can't set an election date. Only per the U.S. Constitution can the state legislature do that. But federal judges do have more power to do some things above and beyond the powers of the Ohio Supreme Court.
And the Ohio Supreme Court has more clout with respect to the congressional districts than it does with respect to the state legislative districts.
So you think if they drew a map and present it to this federal court by May 28th, which is their deadline, the federal court's deadline, they'll say, okay, we'll take this one and not the one you ruled unconstitutional back in March?
I don't think they even have to draw it. It's in the court document, in the court docket already. There have been maps passed by experts, drawn by experts and declared constitutional. There have been maps that the plaintiffs have said we would accept and we would drop the case, and they're all in their court record.
But there's still the federal judges sitting there, and they've got the power per the U.S. Supreme Court to say the most important thing is having the election, and there's some technical problems in some of those maps that are sitting there because congressional districts need to be precise down to the exact person. They can't be a 5 or a 10% variance.
How long before this is back before voters, Herb, and we have a new system?
Let's see what the final result is with respect to the congressional districts, because if there is a partial victory for the reformers on this, they might be willing to say, okay, we achieved something here, but there will be groups out there that will sincerely and some insincerely say, oh, we need to go back to the voters, which means in some cases you've got to raise money again and we've got an issue, but we'll see what happens down the road.
And of course, we're going to be back here in 4 years because none of these maps are going to get bipartisan support. And
well, it might only be 2 years because the Ohio Supreme Court could jump in either congressionally or state legislative and say,
let's do it next year.
Absolutely. Do this every year. It gives you something to talk about.
Just never stop. All right, let's time for our off-the-record parting shots. It's time for those right now. Terry Casey, you're up first.
in line with what we were talking about before, will voters be motivated in the fall? Yesterday, the New York Times had a very detailed look at northwestern Ohio, and they basically said Union Democrats are really frustrated because they see the issues not favoring their party. So there's some real problems in the Democrat turnout base, and that they lack the branding to really be effective.
Julie.
Like I said, I think it might be interesting to watch whether after this primary in the governor race, whether an independent pops up and maybe mixes it up.
Interesting. And Herb.
The August primary will not only be for state legislative seats, but for U.S. House seats.
Really? So you think the court will? How does that happen?
They simply say that, in fact, it's an unconstitutional map,
Yep.
and they have the power, especially on the federal level. They were really proscribed from doing as much on the state legislative.
Yeah, but they could say it. The court themselves.
Yeah, yeah.
Wouldn't that be fun? Imagine the court fights there. All right, that is Columbus on the Record for this week. We urge you to check us out online. We are on Facebook, and you can watch each one of our episodes at our website, wosu.org. There you can watch Columbus on the Record on your time. So if you're out enjoying a Friday night, you can come in on Saturday and catch us then. Our website again is wosu.org/COTR. For our crew and for our panel, I'm Mike Thompson. Have a good week.